I'm going to get into it. This is a talk about Eventa, which is a Drupal-powered event ticketing platform. I'll just introduce myself quickly. I've been doing Drupal since D5. I love making things, and I'm a product owner of Eventa. It's a Drupal-based, New Zealand-made event and ticketing platform. It was built through the combined knowledge of 3 separate companies. They each brought some special sauce to the table. So Passphere brought IP to the table. They were an events company that had got started in New Zealand trying to make some traction, and then COVID hit, so they had to shut down their product development timeline, and things kind of went rough for them, and they went back to the drawing board, and we were in a good position to meet them at sort of the right time. What they brought to the table was all their research into the events industry and a whole lot of IP in the form of UI and UX designs for managing and running events. And they have another events company they run, which is more about logistics and so on. So they've got a lot of good industry knowledge there they brought to the table. We're still in the various stages of implementing the designs that they have, because they're quite fully fledged and cover a lot of space in the events industry. NEC we partnered with as well. They bought legal, finances, they put some investment in to help build. They brought their biometrics platform to the table and some industry connections, so that's all extremely useful. And then Xequals, which is a company that I run, we brought our development capabilities, some co-investment and project management and day-to-day operations of the system. So looking at MVP, obviously we had to start somewhere. And we needed to think, okay, what does a functional ticketing platform actually need to meet MVP? And it turns out that depends entirely on which event organizer you ask. It turns out the events market is extremely diverse and complicated, and almost all events have something unique that they need or would like. And to create a feature set that covers like most events is almost impossible. Even within like a niche type of event, it's difficult. And no 2 event organizers do it quite the same, so finding a best fit for all scenarios isn't really doable without huge investment. So we've kind of had to go with a phased approach. So initially we landed on like a really small core set. You could create events with times and locations. You could add tickets to those with variable pricing and capacity. You could create seating plans to map the ticket types to. This was one that we weren't sure would go in the first phase, but we got it in there. You can sell the tickets online. You could create promotional codes for those tickets. There's some basic reporting on that, and that you could check in guests with an app using QR code or biometric. The biometric part's in there because we partnered with NEC and they helped co-fund that part, and that you could then do some basic admin stuff like processing refunds and cancellations. Shortly after we sort of did a soft launch with this and brought in a couple of events, we immediately discovered a zillion other features we needed. It only took running a couple of events for a swathe of things to come in to meet some of the more complex requirements. So then some of these we sort of implemented per event. We've done about 15 events now across about a year, just sort of testing and implementing things as we go, as we enter the events market. And we started off with the ability to create organizations, add staff accounts, so you can have staff help check things in, being able to sell tickets at the door. We had one event that needed door sales, and we managed to create like a minimum viable version of that, and got ticket printing working with receipt printers, which was pretty exciting. Adding custom questionnaires and forms per event turned out to be really common need. Just being able to collect some kind of attendance data, whether it's dietary or extra fields that event organizers needed. Post-purchase self-service of ticket information turned out to be big the larger an event got. So people wanted to be able to log back into their account and then edit the things that entered into these custom questions. Often people would buy tickets on someone else's behalf and they needed to update those details later. Then performance improvements. So we had one event that had, it was for the World Press Photo Exhibit. It was the biggest event we've run on the platform so far, that had many thousands of tickets sold, and almost all of the ticket sales were happening on weekends, and all the purchasing was happening at the door, and then immediately after the purchases were made, the people were getting checked in with the check-in app just around the corner. And we had some performance issues for one of the weekends, which we worked through with basically creating like shorter, simpler views of the check-in information that could be used for processing tickets that had just been sold in the app. Just a lot less lookups because we were pulling in a lot of information per guest into our guest lists. Then we added we also added group check-ins, so you could have someone buy tickets for a group and then they show up as the group and you can check them all in at once without having to search for each person and check in each person. So it's just improving the flow of getting people into events quicker. We added a view from seats, which is just a nice feature we got with the API we use for seating, which I'll dig into later. And then we improved our reporting largely in response to this particular event for the World Press Photo exhibit, where they were doing so many sales like in a day that they needed to be able to break it down more granularly so they could sort of see what was happening now. So we created like multi-day reporting, and then we broke that down into per hour so they could dive in and just see graphs of how that's all going. So this is the stuff we've added after running, the first sort of year of events. We've got a massive timeline of a whole lot of stuff over the next 3 years that we're going to be building in. And it's, all kind of quite exciting, to be honest. Some of the solutions we came up with to solve these problems we thought were quite elegant and interesting, and we're using novel APIs or ways of using Drupal. So using some existing external APIs as well, and I just kind of want to share some of that. One of the things that we brought in that we're pretty excited about was being able to do fully seated events. We use seats.io to handle this. We were originally looking at ways of developing this out in Drupal, and it was just with our own custom thing, but it's just such a complex thing to get right. And we realized that could become like half of the project very easily. So we found seats.io and figured out some interesting ways of integrating that with our object model. And this basically gives us reliability that, if someone books a seat, it's immediately booked. And, you can use the seats.io interface to quickly, say this zone of seats isn't available and update things as you go. And they've got a whole bunch of other rich features that we can tap into, which is quite fun. Rapid check-ins, we implemented multiple ways to do check-ins because we realized that event organizers all have different ways they kind of want to handle this. We've got the tickets are generated with the Drupal ticketing module, which we're co-maintaining with Pedro Cambra, who's been helping us with a whole bunch of the commerce stuff on the back end. And we've extended that Drupal commerce ticketing module out to handle a whole bunch of extra fun stuff that we're doing. We've built a custom React app that does the check-ins. So it's got 4 ways you can check people in. One of them is people can print out the tickets that they've generated from making a purchase. It's got a QR code on it. You can scan that with the app. It checks them in. You can also just search through your guest list by name and pull up someone and check them in manually. If they've added a photo and agreed to the biometric feature, or if the event is running the biometric feature and someone has added the photo to their profile and buys a ticket that way, they can consent to be scanned at the event to basically be admitted via biometrics, which is quite a fun one and good for future implementation plans that we have with NEC for being able to rapidly process queues at larger venues, which would be some interesting stuff. And then our group check-in, which also works with the biometric check-in, so you could have the group person show up, you scan them, and then it brings up all their guests and you can check everyone off. So one thing that we wanted to be able to handle obviously was this ability to collect custom questions per event, and we needed a config only kind of way to do this because events move pretty quickly, and we didn't want to have to deploy code every time someone needed new questions. And we ended up utilizing paragraphs as forms, which is pretty novel, I think. And what we've done there is essentially you can go and you can create a paragraph type that has all the questions you need, and then it uses the form display mode for the paragraph to actually then render it on the ticket purchase process. And if you've got multiple tickets at once, it'll put them in a tabbed kind of flow, and you go through each one and fill them out. We should be able to demonstrate that today near the end of the talk, but we're pretty happy with how that one turned out. It's not a traditional kind of approach. And then we've got a taxonomy-based permissions mapping for that too, so you can lock down different organizers, can have access to different paragraphed question sets and things. So we've got a standardized, standard conference set of questions that everyone can access, and then you can kind of, per event, if someone's got more specific things, you can give them access to their particular question sets they might want to add to an event. And then that's all included in the reporting for the event as well, so they can see all the answers for that, and anyone who's purchased a ticket can also edit their answers to these as well. Another thing that was created in the process, which I'm keen to contribute back to the community, was a tour interactor module. And basically what this does is, you've got the tour module, and we had that for delivering demos and with help information. But what this does is it actually allows the tour module to interact with the forms on the page. So you can have it enter in demo data into fields as you click through, and actually submit forms as you click through, and then it'll take you to another page, and then it continues from there and fires up another tour. So you can do fully fledged kind of workflows with the tour module with this, and have it fill in all the forms as you go, so you don't have to copy over all your stuff. That's something that was in there for, I think, about a year, and then Tour got changed, how that works with Drupal, and yeah, we've taken it out for the meantime, but I want to bring it back in and contribute that module back, because I think it'd be pretty cool. So I want to give you a little demo of some of these things. Well, I've got 4 demos. We'll just see how many we get through and how well they go. What I'm going to do quickly here is switch up how I'm doing the screens here, because at the moment I've got 2 screens. That's a bit complex. All right, there we go. That should be working there. All right, so here I am logged in. I'll just show you seats.io here. So I've created a seating plan for the waterfront room, which is not this one. Oh, it hasn't done the thing. Okay, so I guess I had to hit OK properly there. Yeah, so I'll show you how some of the seats.io stuff looks. So this is the seating plan that I've set up for the room below us, which is actually one that I thought I was going to be giving this talk in, but it's not. But I gave the talk in this one yesterday. In any case, there's this wonderful UI. We can very quickly, using the seats.io API, do things like just whip up sets of seats really easily, choose how they're numbered. You can assign categories to them. We map these categories in the Eventa platform to different types of tickets. So you can have different pricing per area, stuff like that. They have another wonderful feature, which is the view from seats. So you can, per section or seat, you can put in a view of what people can see from that seat. We think that's pretty cool. So you can see we've got, from this table, there's a poll right in the way. So you can say, cool, this is a restricted view seat. And you can see here I've put restricted view as the category for that one, so we'll make use of that in a moment. So this is all pretty cool stuff. As you edit or update the chart key updates, so you can have multiple instances of a chart, and you can have it updated per event, and each event that you run with this, it'll maintain sort of memory of which seats are booked out, and you can block off different ones and move tables around and so on per event. Now let's go in here and update the Harborside function venue and add another space to it. So currently we have the Harborside function venue in here with a general admission type space. So we have multiple ways of handling ticket allocation. So the general admission option in the system just lets you say, okay, here's a general admission space at a venue. It just has, when you create your tickets, you just put capacity of how many tickets there are per type rather than putting them into seats. But we're going to add a space with a seating plan. So now it's asking for a name for that. So we'll go, let's just, we've got Harborside Waterfront. And it needs a chart key, which I've conveniently saved off here. So you can see now we have this extra space on here. And I'll just save the venue. This is all pretty standard Drupal forms here for this admin stuff. So that's in there. I'll set this venue to published. Oh. Now I'm going to switch over to Event Manager. So this is Venue Manager. This is typically us going through and helping a venue set this all up. Then we'll switch over to an event organizer who's going to create an event, and they have a bit more of a non-Drupal admin menu style thing going on. So I'll switch over to this login. So we have a DrupalSouth account that I've created here. We actually set up a demo version of the whole DrupalSouth event. We were going to be running ticketing actually for this event, but we just ran out of time by the very end there. But you may well see that some future Drupal events we are using this as the platform, which will be quite fun. In any case, we have this profile set up, and I'll go and create a new event. Now we're actually going to create an event for this talk, which is being delivered in the room below us, because that's what the seating plan I have set up is. So I'm just going to copy over all of their data. And this one's delivered by Annex, so I think it's appropriate we're annexing their talk for this one. I'm sure they won't mind. So we'll copy this over. I'll just make this nice and easy. Give it an event name. Let's give it a quick description. Oops, got too many tabs open here. Put it in a category. This one's, I'll just say this is conference. And we'll just leave the date and time as default, because that's already rounding off to something close enough to now. This is an in-person event. Now we select this Harborside function venue, and then we choose the waterfront room space that we've just created. We could add some terms and conditions, and I'll just leave that one blank. You can enter information to include on the receipts, anything you want here. Typically we suggest people put the GST number on because everyone asks for it. If you're running an event that has a separate entity that needs the GST information on it. Just put test number, doesn't really matter. So we'll go to the next page. This is where it asks for some media, so a thumbnail and a header image. So let's just grab a couple of random. We've got, we'll just do one of the seating plans. Doesn't really matter what I'm putting in here for this little demo. Go next. Now here's where we set up some of the settings that would change how the event behaves. So we're going to say that this one supports facial recognition, which almost no one turns on, and it's not really surprising. But you know, eventually we might get some security conference or something that finds that to be a cool thing to demo. So we'll turn that one on. You can set a maximum number of tickets per person, which when you're using the facial recognition feature can be quite useful to max it as 1 ticket per person. So you know each person who bought it has their photo and it all ties together nicely. But you can also have multiple here and then do the group check-in thing with the faces. So we're just going to leave this as default for now. There are some validation traits we can add for the seating plan. So it's figured out we've got a seating plan in here, and it's allowing us to turn on consecutive seats or no off on seats. So what consecutive seats does, these are seats.io features. Consecutive seats just means if you've got multiple tickets on your order, they have to be next to each other. And no orphan seats means you can't buy tickets that would leave someone stuck on the end of a row. So we can choose to turn those on. I'm just going to leave them off for now. And then there's an option to include this on the home page and in search, which I think usually everyone would turn on, but this is a demo, so, well actually I will. We're on the demo domain, it's fine. So we'll turn this one on. That's on by default, there we go. So So go next. And then we have adding the actual tickets. So I will add the first ticket type, and we'll go, so this is the restricted view ticket. We've got we map these to the categories. So when someone's picking a seat, whichever sets of tickets are available for that category will appear. So you can have multiple types here. You could make, 3 ticket types per category if you wanted. Sometimes you need a quite complex arrangement here. So you might have, you've got the seating areas, but then you've got maybe types of guests. You could have, age brackets, students, all that kind of stuff. You might have a whole bunch of things you need to enter in here. And you can sort of choose which of those ticket types you advertise on the event page versus are discoverable on the seating plan themselves. And that's pretty easily done. I'll just show you how that works. So the restricted view one, maybe we won't advertise on the actual event page, but if you happen to pick it, it'll come up. So say this one's, we're going to make them all free so that you can hopefully demo buying them. We'll see how that goes. You can add custom images on each ticket type as well, just to make them look fancy. We're going to skip over that one for today. This particular ticket type will hide. Then we'll add a new one. So we'll do at least one for each category. We'll do these other 3 categories. So we'll go premium view, well, actually we don't have to name it after the category, so we could say this is our front rows, because that's how I've set that up. You can optionally add descriptions to the tickets as well, and they'll show up on the actual ticket. So if you've got a special ticket type that needs extra information on the ticket itself, you can do that. It might be things like, you might want printed on the ticket like, this does not grant you access to this other thing, or present this ticket for free, whatever it was that ticket came with, that kind of thing. So you can add extra details per ticket. Just go standard. Then we have table. This one's not actually booking the whole table. You can choose whether it's booking a whole table or not when you're setting it up on the seats.io end, if you're adding tables in. So you can have people book a full table, and that would be for a full group. In this case, I've set it up so you could pick an individual seat at a table. And we'll just call this one table seat. Say you'll be sharing the table with other people. That'll show up on your ticket if you've got this one. Okay, so I've entered all this. We also have this attendee details to collect. Now I'm going to add in general conference attendance details for this one. And we'll finish creating that. So here we go, it's generated our event page. We have the date and time for the event. We have the ticket types we decided to show, but not the restricted view one. We have who the event's by. It's not actually by the DrupalSouth committee, obviously, but I'm logged in as that demo account we've made. And then it's generated a map for us automatically based on the venue address for the venue that was selected. And it's got some venue information underneath. So I can also go in here and quickly check the orders and purchase tickets from this page, or I've got other admin pages I can access as well. And I'll just give you an idea of how this now looks as a guest. So let's just open up another, just open it in a shopping tab. Let's go with that. So this is just, not authenticated anymore, and I can see the event's already here. And if I go to choose a seat, we get this seating plan that shows up, and you can see it shows the view. So these front row seats, you can just see the screen. But as you go back, you've got the seats in front of you, view from this table, and then here's our restricted view seats. So you can see there it's got the pole in front of the screen. And now I've only mapped one ticket type per category, so there's no options in here, it just lets me select one. But if I'd mapped, a few other types in here, you would see them pop up. And actually I could give a very quick example of that because we have got the event open, so I could just go in here and hit edit tickets and add a new ticket type and say standard with food, or maybe table with food. That kind of makes more sense. Now let's just say, now I could make two of these, one mapped to the table and one mapped to the restricted view table, but I'll just do one for now. We create that. In fact, I'll edit that quickly and hide that from our event page as well. We'll save. Now which tab did I have open for this? This one, so I'll refresh the page. I don't know how quickly that would have updated if I didn't, but in theory, if I select a table seat, here we go, now we have two options. So we could purchase the table ticket or the table with food ticket. Nice and easily. So we'll go table with food. And we'll actually book more than one ticket on this one. So I'll also get a front row seat and a restricted view. And then I can hit book. Now on the checkout page, you can see it's added things to the cart. We have the general booking information that you would expect, and then we have our ticket holders, and they're all showing here in a list, and we can fill them out. Now I think this particular demo site I have open here is not showing the flow through per thing. Turns out I used the wrong domain, but that's okay. We have a draft domain as well. But yeah, you get the idea. So we can go in here, we can shows which seat each of the ticket holders has. We can fill in their details. I'll just quickly auto-complete some stuff. If you omit on these ones all of these details, it will let you through and it'll just use the ticket purchaser initially, because sometimes you don't always know the details. And that's something you can set up per event as well. I think I'll just see what I can skip through here. It needs the billing details. All right, I'll just chuck that in. So I'm from Melbourne. Well, I'm actually Kiwi, but living in Melbourne the last while. Continue to review. Oh, that's okay, so it does want these ones, at least for the first person. I'll just chuck those all in just to make it easier. See, I must have set this one to need them all. All right. Let's just chuck a couple of random guest names in. I think I've got everything. Oh, that's great for a demo. Well, I was brave, gave it a go. My guess is that this is because I've used the domain where I'd half deployed the forms thing to. Yeah, or that I've set them all to $0 and it doesn't understand. Let's see on our, let's see if those tickets got generated or not. Probably not. No, they didn't. That's a shame. Because that would have been really fun to continue the demo there. I think this is probably a good time to open up for questions. A bit awkward demo ending. Hi, Andrew.
Yeah, so great talk. Thanks for showing this off. I'm really curious. Thank you. I'm really curious about the thinking or reasoning that went into choosing paragraphs as configuration forms versus like web forms or something like that. I've never really seen it used like that. I'm curious to hear your thoughts.
Yeah, it was just more around the simplicity of what we needed the forms to have, and having something that, like web forms just comes with a whole lot of extra that we didn't need, and we already had paragraphs in the system. We're trying to run as lean a code base on this one as we can, because we're just aware of how much it's going to expand over time. There's like so many things in the roadmap, So this way it allowed us to create something that was, quite elegant in that it just allowed us to do that. I think I could probably demo on one of our other domains here that working in a checkout process. So I think that could be quite good to see. And then, but there was basically just less modules needed and simpler forms. Yeah. Okay, so.
I'm also assuming that around this you can build out the rest of the site to contain potentially all the information that would lead a user to wanting to purchase this ticket and go through that journey. Is that right?
Yep. Yeah, obviously. One thing we've got is things like the organization pages. So, for example, here we can now see there's 2 events on here. This is one of the draft ones we set up, and this one we did today. Information about the organization. So you've got your own landing page that you can do things with. But then, of course, it's a Drupal site, so we've got capacity there to do a lot with what we might want to do with informational and content. And you can build out a page to link out to all sorts of stuff. And we're working on some extra groups content stuff to handle all of that, around like extra content per organizer, so they can manage all of their events and promotional stuff there. We've got some other pretty exciting potential partnerships with other promoters as well. We'll see where that all goes.
I also had one intrusive thought that I can't get rid of. What if you had identical twins with the face recognition and you restricted it to one? Yeah, I can post that.
We haven't tested for that, but the NEC ID tool, like they've used it for a lot of stuff, obviously. It would come up with, when you scan the person for the attendance, it will come up with the person that it thinks it is, the percentage match that they meet, but then it'll also have their name, so you can check if that's them or not. So you could say, well, that one's not Bill, no. And you can decline that and try again, or you can sort of get the next closest sort of thing. But that is definitely something that could happen. Sometimes, we'll scan a really old photo of someone and it doesn't work, but 90% of the time it does. It's like pretty good. And that's something that over time, I think the larger the event is, the less accurate that would get in terms of maybe getting false positives, because it'll take the closest match for that event. It uses just that pool. But you could certainly have issues with, if you had a huge event, there might be more false positives there coming up. So we're yet to run into that, but we'll see how that goes when we get there.
Another question, how do you handle archiving? You probably don't want to keep 10 years of events in the database.
You're right. So currently we don't archive because we don't have enough events in there, but we have it in the roadmap. The idea would be, like currently it just unpublishes the event and puts it into a sort of a past events area, which they drop off of out of once they drop out of the grid of however many we have set there at the time. At some point we'll have an automatic, like basically the reporting is set up in such a way that we can export the reports. So the idea would be that once your event's wrapped up, it would sit in the system for X amount of time, and you will have received all your reporting and so on, and then we'll have a schedule that basically removes it from the system at that point with an archive of the reporting data available as needed, and that'll be it. But I think that's a high quality problem to have. Once we've got too many events in there, that's a good thing. We'll see when that happens.
Rox, the question looked like all the interaction is just using standard Drupal front end. Is it part of the roadmap to make it headless so you can either use an app or a React screen that drives that ticket purchase process?
Yeah, so we do have one app so far, but it's just for the check-in staff. But there are plans in future to have an app for the purchasing and managing of your own tickets as a customer end. That's coming up a bit later. For now, we're using Drupal for this just because it's, as far as like development effort and time and the timeline of things we need to include, it's a little further down the line, but it is planned for release at some point. Some of these features in our timeline are sort of dependent on hitting sort of X number of events of a given type to kind of have the platform fund itself essentially as we develop it out further.
So one more question. I'm kind of curious, from having worked in similar situations like this, the first, I guess, like sort of corporate big business competitor that would come to mind for this kind of platform would be like Salesforce Page Manager. How have you done any user studies to see how this kind of stacks up against that? How people are responding to it in regards to that kind of platform?
Yeah, there's like a lot of different potential competitors we could consider for this, and there's a lot of angles we could end up going down. I think the one thing we're keen to do is sort of keep a close local kind of feel to this, and just work mostly in Australia and New Zealand as a platform. And I think some of the sectors that we're looking at approaching are more venue based, so things like patron base are sort of the more likely competitor, where you have more of the in-house management tools as well, because obviously with it built on Drupal we can extend out our over-the-counter ticket sales component we have in here. So we have a payment gateway you can set up in here where the staff members can just sell the tickets without the user having to purchase them, and then they can get checked in. But extending out that feature set a bit further so that venues can have it as their sort of preferred ticket over-the-counter system, I think is where we're likely headed. And yeah, the idea is, as well, is like, because we're running this with Drupal in it, we have the ability to open up an API connections to all sorts of things. There's room there for us to integrate as well with other systems that might otherwise compete as well. So it might be that some of the more complex features that a company might need, that we just make an API connection to something else and kind of go a bit lighter there. So see how that goes. We're still exploring the markets and where that all heads. Yeah, I'm gonna just check on this this here as a guest and see if the thing I'm hoping shows up. I'm not going to add this password. Okay, so it wants me to log in. Yep, that makes sense. I'll just be... Okay, this is what I expected to see on the checkout. So I will pop back a page or two here and actually refresh and add more than one ticket to the cart so you can see this. It's really wanting me to save the password. All right. Okay, so this is how this actually works when I'm not on a more dev site. This is on a draft site. I'm logged in currently as a event organizer, so I've actually been given an additional payment gateway for just collecting the payment on site. But the idea here is you've got your ticket buyer, but then you've got an attendance form for each person, and it'll go through them. You've got this next attendee button here, so you can kind of fill in. If I try and just skip through, it'll say, oh, you haven't, you've got your validation stuff. You need to fill these in. So I'm just going to poorly write the word test on a bunch of these. Say I'm from Australia, just whatever, just picking stuff. Okay, so I'm not getting a student ticket, so I don't need to upload that. And if I hit next attendee, I think this is getting in the way. Go away. Here we go. So now we're on to attendee number 2. So the idea is you go through and you fill out each of these, and then you will get... I might quickly fill them out just so you can see the next page, since we've got this far. I guess we need to... I'll just get it to autofill some of this. Okay, so I think there must have been 2 attendees there. That makes sense. And I'll agree with the terms and conditions. So this one was a payment collected on site one, so I've also got options for like printing the tickets with the receipt printer here showing up, or viewing them individually, or just printing them together on an A4 page, depending on how you're set up to print. But see here I can have a pop in and see there's one of the tickets, and that can be scanned in with the app. I can actually demo that now and check this particular guest in. So I'm already logged in on the app. If I refresh this, the second event we made today is showing up. We'll go into this first one. I'll quickly log out and log back in the correct environment now that we've swapped environment, because that could be a problem. Just for a moment while I do that. Maybe that's the wrong app. I'm just going to quickly check. I'm having trouble logging into that environment on the app, so I'm going to quickly check that if this one had tickets purchased on it previously. No. Oh. Awkward.
Sorry, Sam. I think I'm Sunday's call was meant to start.
Cool.
So
Well, yeah, I think I did a mostly successful live demo across 2 environments, so yeah, awesome.